is good volume. Okay. Right, here we go. Okay, so, Margaret Keane was born 1927. Yellow? Yes. In Nashville, Tennessee. She was raised Methodist. Margaret had a very deep respect for her religion. The reason I bring it up is because it does play an important part later in her life. She was predominantly raised by her grandmother, who was also Methodist, very religious family. So her love for her grandma also followed with her being deeply religious. Was born in 27. Really? Oh wow, what a coincidence. Same year. Yes, so even though she was very religious from a very young age, like everyone, I would say, she was a very questioning person. Questioning her faith, questioning who she was. I mean, she's, you know, a child slash teenager. It's pretty usual for that to happen. But she would often go to the Bible and like look for answers, and she just wasn't satisfied with what they were saying, I suppose. Again, this will all come back later, but anyways, so she started at these are examples, but I'll just leave this one, I guess. She studied at Watkins Art Institute in Nashville, and by 18 years old, she was in New York studying at the Arts College. So she's been drawing, painting since a very young age. I learned that from math. The answers are usually in the back. Wait, what? Hi, Neural. Yeah, so she's been an artist and drawing from like a very young age. And she's self-quoted saying that when she was younger, or even at the age of like 18, being a teenager, she was very shy as a child. Oh, okay. So it's still present. She was a very shy person. Even as a teenager, being alone and painting was like her favorite thing to do. So being left alone with her thoughts while she painted, that's when she would have the most freedom to think about her purpose in life, her religion, her faith, all that sort of stuff. So from very early on, she kind of used painting as a crutch, I suppose, which right now may not be a bad thing, but you know, for someone that's feeling very lost, secluding yourself isn't always the best idea. So, hi, Bishop. Revelations is the answer. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, so obviously, she's questioning a lot. She's, putting a lot of thought into her religion and things. And again, since she's been drawing from a very young age, her art has always depicted these people, girls, animals sometimes, with big eyes, like this example here. And she's drawn them like that for as long as she can remember, because she said for her that the eyes are the most expressive part of the face. And of course, she believed in the whole, like, the eyes are the window to the soul, blah, blah, blah. So that's why she had a big fascination with bigger eyes and depicting them that way as well. So yeah. I think she even has sketches from like when she was like 11 years old of her drawing young children with big eyes. So it's also a song by Cheap Trick. Oh, cool. Today I learned. I don't think I've heard it, so. Yeah, and then not only that, but, and you'll see later on in the examples, but her early works, like this one, the subjects would have slightly big eyes, but they would also have expressions on their face. It's not until later on, and you'll see, what she paints is usually like very serene, emotionless characters, like subjects. So we can kind of see the transformation, I guess, slowly. So, and from the beginning, her art has always been labeled as kitsch. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Kitsch. And what that is, and this is what the examples were for. I kind of skipped ahead, but examples of that on the left is Vladimir Trechkov, and on the right is Jeff Koons. I'll give you a definition of what kitsch is. The definition is, quote, art considered to be in poor taste because of excessive garishness or sentimentality, but sometimes appreciated in an ironic or knowing way, end quote. Which, I don't really know how I feel about that definition. I find it to be a little rude. I don't know, but I'm also that kind of person that like defends a lot of art. So yeah, I guess because both of these examples, and a lot of the times people categorize art as kitsch art, is because, as you can see on the left one here, only like shoulders and up is the painting done. Whereas her arms and her lower torso is still like a doodle. So that's like, it's incomplete. Yeah, that's what labels it as kitsch. As well as these two examples were very popularized and sold in like merchandise, posters, postcards, little statues, like that little balloon animal one, statues. It was basically shilled out in every which way by the artist. So I guess that in itself made the kitsch term be like, oh, the artist is it's like sub-level art and the artist is a sellout, quote unquote. And I don't know. Again, I'm very conflicted with that definition and artists being sellouts or whatever, because, you know, artists obviously need to eat too. So the fact that, yeah, these were sold everywhere in every which way, I don't really care, you know, like, get your monies, that's fine. I still think they're both very interesting, very cool art pieces. Are they the most profound art pieces to ever like exist on this planet? No, but not every art piece has to be, so. Common feature in rented houses, 70s, 80s, 90s, seeing her as well, being weirded out by her blue face. Yeah, she was everywhere. Again, along with the balloon animal over there, everywhere. Whether it be from directly the artist or being made like from knockoff brands and things, which that's not really the artist's fault. I don't know, but yeah. Anyways, that's what labels kitsch art is surface level art that's like mass produced, I guess. So like the painting we talked about, remember? Or I'm sure you've all seen it, of it's a table full of dogs playing poker. That's also kitsch art because it was sold everywhere. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the definition, but like, I guess, you know. Cash in on the craze. Exactly. And like, would I bat an eye if you did that? No. Get money. Feed yourself, you know? Like, I don't know if I agree with that whole definition of kitsch art. It just seems kind of mean, you know? Like, mean-spirited, I suppose. That it was cool. I mean, you are cool too, but not something I would want to own. Yeah, you know, like even if it's something to like put in like a display home or something. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, what breed of dog is that? That's a good question. Hi, Fred. What breed of dog? Yes. So another example of kitsch art is from the 60s, the lava lamp. Yeah, that's labeled as kitsch art because everybody in the 60s had a lava lamp. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah, so I was actually able to find a nicer definition of the word kitsch that I personally align with a little more than that first one I read. The nicer definition that I found was, quote, art that is quirky or witty, but is in reference to a well-known image. For example, the balloon animal over there. Like, yes, we've all seen like a balloon animal, but it's still art, you know? So, I have 4 lava lamps. Lava lamps are fucking cool, dude. Lava lamps are awesome. Like, a baloodle. Ah, yes. Okay, so, back to mass-produced art, such as pop art pieces. Can the endpoint of the art not change the overall style of the art? Yeah, I know some people will actually say that the Mona Lisa is kitsch art because of how popularized and mass-produced the Mona Lisa is. It's very divisive, but it makes sense, right? By that first definition I read. So any art that's mass-produced is kitsch. Like, to me, I'm like, no, like, what? Oh, that's not really... So the Starry Night is kitsch art? Like, I don't really agree with that. So, yeah. I think the nicer definition perhaps fits a little better with what maybe they were trying to say. So, ain't no way. Exactly. So, yeah, I read that and I was like, oh, snap, they got told, you know? Yeah. I feel like mass production should not be the fault of the art. I mean, even if they did say, like, yeah, I'm gonna mass produce this painting to be sold everywhere, like this guy on the left did. Okay. Like, what is it? I don't know. Indoor swimming pool. Oh, that's kind of interesting. I like that take. Anyways, okay, so let's go back to Margaret Keane. Yeah, so that's why they label her art, which I'll get into in a little bit, as kitsch, is because it's kind of like surface level, mass-produced art. So, anyways, yes. So this is Young Girl with Dog. This was done 1961. Margaret Keane, of course. Oil on canvas. Most of her paintings are actually done in oil. She does use other media as well. Sometimes she'll do acrylics, sketches, things like that. But more often than not, it's oil. So, but not all the time. Yeah, exactly. Reminds me of jam. Oh, why? Running away. Ugh. Right, so where did we leave off? Oh, right, so... yeah. We're in the 50s now, so about 1955. Margaret would go on to marry her first husband. They did have a daughter together. Her name is Jane. Unfortunately, the marriage did not last very long. They separated not too long into the marriage, unfortunately. And it wasn't until 1955 that she meets a man named Walter Keane, and they get married. 1955. So let me go a little tiny backstory into Walter, because it is important. Walter was one of 10 children growing up. Big family. Early on, Walter got a job selling shoes, and that's where he found that he was the most successful. He found that he was kind of a born salesman, if you will. He was already called Keane. Yeah. Oof, just you wait, girl. Okay. Yes, so he found he was kind of naturally a born salesman. He did very well selling shoes in his early jobs until eventually he moves to LA, California, and he starts a real estate business with his partner Barbara, who he ends up marrying, and they have 2 children together. So they take a vacation to Paris. Walter did have some family up there, but he wanted to go as a vacation, but that's where Walter found he loved art. He starts a small toy line, which is depicted up there. He starts a small toy line and decides to drop his real estate business that he had made with his partner/wife, Barbara, because he wanted to become a full-time artist. He wanted to become the artist, the next big artist, basically. Obviously, this was a very drastic choice, and his wife, Barbara, was like, hey, maybe not the best idea, just kind of dropping everything and just, but no matter how much she tried to convince him, Walter was dead set. He refused to do any more real estate. He was 100% in to the idea of becoming a painter/artist. So Walter and Barbara end up divorcing around 1953, and it's after the divorce that Walter was more determined than ever to become successful, to sell his work, all that jazz. He was displaying his work at an outdoor art festival in California when he met Margaret. So yeah, 2 years later, he got married to Margaret. Kind of fast, I know, but that's the 50s, baby. Divorce. Yeah, it's just, anyways. Yeah, so they're happily married. They're a couple now. They're an item. True love. Yeah. True love. So pretty quickly, Walter, even from first meeting her, Walter sees Margaret's talent. They were painting together for a while, and he was selling or trying to sell some of his works, and while also kind of advertising Margaret's, this is my wife's paintings sort of deal. And when he noticed that Margaret's paintings were doing a little better than his, he was like, all right, so your true talent is painting. I feel my true talents are my salesmanship. So instead of trying to be a painter, I'm going to be Margaret's manager, art manager. So basically, he would be in charge of marketing, advertising, getting her name out there, showing off her paintings, that whole deal, which obviously is a very important, huge job. And Margaret was very thankful that he wanted to do that because, again, she was very shy, very to herself. She didn't really know how to talk to people. Not only that, but again, it's the 50s. She's a woman in the 50s. Not super great. So she's already starting with that crutch, but along with, yeah, she's very shy, doesn't really know how to doesn't know how to sell, you know? Divorce. Oh my God. Magical, some would say. True love. Yeah, true magic, true love. Right. So, Walter is now her manager for Margaret. So at first, they were not doing super great. They were living in extreme poverty. A lot of their money not only went into art supplies for Margaret, but they decided, or Walter decided, hey, what if instead of trying to sell 3 of your original paintings, which cost, I think at the time they were selling them for like $20, which you're like $20, but I mean, this is the 50s and not a lot of people were really buying original art pieces, you know? So with that in mind, Walter thought, hey, what if we, you know, as a way of advertising, make photocopies of your paintings and put those posters all over San Francisco, you know? Used his marriage to scout for talent. Oh shit, Fred. Calling shit when he sees it. Yes, so they're hanging up posters everywhere and they realize that people are keeping the posters rather than actually going to the art studio and buying things. So that's when they decide, okay, instead of hanging them around town for free, Walter realizes, hey, what if we offer the posters here in our little gallery, but charge $1 per poster? And people were buying them. People were eating that shit up. And so eventually Walter was like, all right, well, let's start selling them for $2. And again, people were still buying them. They were selling infinitely better than just the original actual paintings. Because it's cheaper, right? Like $2 versus $20. It makes sense. Yeah. So by that time, by all of the money they were making, by 1959, instead of selling her paintings at $20 a piece, they started selling her pieces from lowest being $450 up to highest was about $4,500. That's how popular they were getting. That's how much money they were making. People loved Margaret's art. They thought it was very emotional. Yeah, to where they not only were selling her art for like a lot of money, but they also were able to buy and open an actual Keane art gallery. So yeah, her career is like taking off, you know. I should have bought them for 20. Yeah, right. I wonder if there's like originals from way back when. Okay. Yeah, so not only were they like selling posters and things, but another reason why Margaret's artwork was doing so well and selling so well, and people were finding out about the art gallery and who she was because Walter, being the salesman that he was, would spend like his entire day advertising her art, whereas Margaret would stay home and work on the paintings. Again, she's still very shy. She's still trying to, like, even though she's like in her late like 20s, maybe 30s, she was still very questioning like who she was, what's her purpose in life, that sort of deal. Very normal stuff, you know. It would be 100 or debtors. Oh. Lively and thriving. Yeah, with all your money. You would have stayed alive somehow. I just know it. Okay. Let's see. Yes, so basically, again, Walter would spend his days marketing, advertising, gaining traction to Margaret's paintings, while Margaret would stay home alone, basically, in her painting room, working on products to sell, basically. And she even admits that it kind of became an obsession. That was her safe and happy place. It wasn't very healthy of her. Yeah. So, yeah, pretty sad. So, oh yeah, also keeping in mind that, yeah, it's just, yeah, wasn't... You're going back. Please don't send me back in time. Oh, you're going back. Oh, shit. Yes, keep in mind, though, that Walter, did paint. He technically knew how to paint. Remember, because, yeah, he went to Paris and kind of learned how to paint. He was able to, imitate? Yeah, there we go. Imitate, a kind of similar style to Margaret. Again, if we go back to the toys and things that he used to sell, he would actually hand paint those faces on the dolls here. Is my laser up? He would paint these faces. So it's not like he was completely deprived of any like artistic skill. He did technically know how to paint, just not as well as Margaret, I suppose. So yeah, he would sometimes help out, turns out, with Margaret's works. And when I say that, I mean he would sometimes paint a very simple background for her to kind of help her out, you know, with the workload. And she would paint the waif children, as they're called, over the simple background, or she would even add on to that background sort of deal. So some of the paintings would end up becoming more of like collaborative, I guess, because again, he, you know, helped with the background sometimes, but I think maybe that's when it started that Walter in his head started thinking, oh, this is our paintings. This is our work instead of this is Margaret's work. You know what I mean? So here's where things start getting spicy. Yeah. Returned a skilled artist. I know, I've seen your art. Yeah, so... and here's... oh, another painting she did. Yeah, so... Not that he did all of this background for example. Maybe he just did the colors and then Margaret would go in and make the lines and the rest of the figures and stuff. So I just want to make it very clear that in some ways, yes, he did help a smidge with the paintings. I think maybe he just became a little misguided on that. Not that I'm excusing for what's about to happen, but yes. Anyways, here is a picture of them together. In fact, this is her on the left, and this is Walter on the right. Yes. So, yes, this is where the point where Walter starts thinking that it's his art as well. And unfortunately, I think maybe the lie just kind of snowballed a little bit. So since he would say, you know, oh yeah, this is my art, people started thinking, oh, so you painted it, like this whole thing. And I think eventually, because of his salesmanship and wanting to wow the customers, he said yes. And that's where Margaret Keane's art was now taken credit for by her husband, Walter Keane. Yeah. And you have to remember, Margaret's even quoted as saying, at the time she just signed the paintings with her last name. She didn't think she needed to put her first name. So that's why they say Keane, was because that was, you know, her signature when she was painting under his surname. She didn't think she needed to be specific, like, oh, this is mine, not his. So, yeah. And so unfortunately, for a while, quite a while, in fact, Margaret had no idea that he was taking credit for the paintings. Yeah, people knew that Margaret painted. I don't know if you can see it super well, but this painting she's in front of here, it's a woman with kind of normalish facial features. Her body's a little elongated, but people thought those were her paintings. Whereas Walter's paintings, he was taking credit for these. The waif children, the waifs, they're titled. People, and he was saying, no, these are my paintings, the ones of the children. Hers are of these like kind of elongated, stretched women. So though they're a little similar in like features, these are mine and those are hers. And he's went on a TV interview, pretty much saying that when he visited Paris, he saw, you know, very sad, abandoned children, and it left a very emotional scar on him, I guess. And that's where he got the inspiration for, yeah, these kids. So, yeah. Just really scummy behavior, you know? Yeah, again, I think he started the lie and he just didn't know or didn't care to end it, I guess. So, yeah. Yeah, so by a lot of magazines, interviewers, news stations, things like that, Walter was hailed as a genius for not only painting these beautiful and emotional pieces of these children in like war times or whatever. He was also deemed a genius because he was handling the marketing, the advertising, going to interviews. That's when they started selling merch as well, like merchandise. So Along with the posters of the children, there were like plates, postcards, what's it called? Not birthday, well, just cards, I guess. Like birthday cards, cards you send to family sort of deal. They were starting to mass produce the waif children. So yeah, people were like, damn, Walter, you do everything. You're amazing. Like, they got a Redbubble. Oh my god. Ban that man. Yeah, so this is when the lies started. And unfortunately around that time, Margaret wasn't doing super well as is. Again, she was sad and alone in her painting room. She had gone through kind of a first messy divorce, remember, with her first husband. That didn't work out. And again, even before that, she was a very like questioning, trying to figure out things. So yeah, she wasn't doing well. But when she found out about Walter's lie, I think that really destroyed her. Yeah, because she had a lot of pride in her art. She put a lot of her inner emotions and how she was feeling into these paintings, and for Walter to kind of just take that from her, I think that really destroyed her. And unfortunately, when that happened, she, I think, also realized that, and he would even kind of tell her, hey, the only reason these are doing so well is because of me. Because I'm the salesman, because I'm the advertiser, because I did the TV interviews. You know, so I guess in that sense, because she had only become famous or popular, was because of his salesmanship, I guess, is also why he was like, hey, I made this. I created this empire. I created this business. So those paintings are mine, kind of deal. It was the mental gymnastics this guy went through, wild. Like, the man could be in the Olympics. It was really gross to read about. So yeah, and again, unfortunately, because of the time period and Margaret being kind of the broken woman that she already was, she kind of just went with it. Unfortunately, she just kind of kept painting. They would fight a lot, like in the home and things, but yeah, it basically he had kind of like manipulated her into thinking, oh, well, he's right, you know, which was, you know, really sad. So yeah, so she even quotes saying that he was the best salesman in America, that he could sell you anything. So yeah, that interview was like way later when she gets out, but yes. So yeah, I put this here. I don't know if you can see it super well. Yeah, you can see it well. But the two styles there we go, of like the woman painting that people thought was her art versus like the child art that they thought was his. So yeah. She was basically being kept a secret as like, oh, she did both, actually. So yeah, so by the 60s, Margaret got to the point where she was too depressed to paint, and she kind of came to the idea as well, like, we don't need any more money, you know, like our family is financially good. we're good. Our daughters are good. Our future grandchildren are good. Like, they had that much money. That Margaret was like, I'm just not going to paint anymore. And that's unfortunately when Walter said no. He was very hungry for fame and the spotlight. And that's when the real bad stuff happened. He started threatening her. He would lock her in her painting room like all day until she like came up with some paintings, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was, that's when he kind of became like violent. So a documentary about the save to one of my streaming platforms. Ooh, nice, VP. Yeah, the whole story is super wild and really sad, but good to see you. Hope you're okay. Yeah, so this was in the 60s. So this was happening, this was going on. Margaret and her daughter, who Walter had also threatened. He threatened to off her and her daughter. Till one day, she had it. Margaret had it. She collected what she could, and she ran off and traveled to Hawaii to be free of Walter, basically. It's okay, I need a water break. My throat is just not having it today. Yes, so yeah, her and her daughter, Jane, thankfully, were able to, like, sneak out without, Walter, you know what I mean? Like, she was able to actually escape, which is great. It's a good destination. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, so she left to Hawaii, November 1st, 1964. Yeah, so she moved from California to Hawaii to escape from Walter. And while she was there, funny enough, like pretty soon after she moved, they were on the phone together, Walter and Margaret, and she actually attempted to make like some sort of amends with Walter. Walter refused. Basically saying, again, that the success of her art was solely because of him. That's the only reason they're financially doing well. That's the only, you know what I mean? It's because of him. Like, she would be nothing without him, basically. That whole song and dance that those shitheads do. Margaret even offered to give him his share of the money. To which he refused again. Walter wanted full rights to her work. So Margaret tried, and she even offered him like lots of money, but he's like, no, it's my work. It's me. It's me, you know? Our betterment. What? I doubt she ran. Oh my god. Yeah, canoe and everything. Okay, so, yeah, so basically, Walter refused. He's like, no, they're my paintings. It's my work. This is my empire. This is my business. You can't have any of it, you know? Thankfully, this is The First Grail, 1962. Margaret Keane. Deluded, yes. Yes, and so, thankfully, Walter and Margaret did get divorced in 1965. Walter stayed in California, basking in the fame and the glory, while Margaret stayed in Hawaii, trying to recover from the incredibly abusive relationship she had. Yeah, she would even do paintings there in Hawaii and send them to Walter, which is really sad and like fucked up, I guess. Yeah. While she was in Hawaii though, thankfully she found a very kind man. He was like a sports journalist, writer or something. His name was Dan. He did truly care for her and her daughter. It was like so much better of a marriage than her previous two. That being said though, Margaret, of course, you know, he could only do so much. Margaret was really just broken, really needed help, therapy, but you know, 60s. So yeah, to try and find some sort of healing, I suppose, Margaret decided to go back into religion. So she explored, researched, she just consumed a bunch of religious texts to try and find the right fit. So, like Catholicism, Christianity, she did, I think Mormonism. She was trying everything, you know, she was reading up on everything. She just needed to find some sort of guidance and answers to help her out. So, after many highs and lows in her search, mind you, I definitely TLDR'd this like a lot, because there is a lot that went into her search for religion and finding inner peace. Basically, she found being her place in being a Jehovah's Witness. And from that point on, when Margaret decided that that was her religion, it's like she did a complete 180 as a person. She started finding confidence in herself. She was sure of who she was as a person. She was able to like completely kick her habit of like 20 plus years of smoking. She found her purpose in life, which, you know, love that for her. So pick your own damnation, search. Well, you know, if that's what a person needs, you know. Yeah. So yeah, she found her place. And not only that, but, you know, the people that were also Jehovah's Witnesses, she found friends in them. Yeah, she basically just became confident, which she was very, very much lacking almost her whole life. So, yeah. So she was happy, but she knew she wouldn't be completely happy or find true inner peace until she told the truth about Walter and how he was claiming ownership of her art. And this is where it starts getting a little messy. Hang on, let me switch music. Okay. Whew. Okay, so we also here? We all still awake, I hope? Yes. So in 1970, Margaret went on a radio interview where she spilled the beans, if you will. She told the truth that she was the one responsible for the waif children, that Walter was lying, that he did not paint those were hers. And people were shocked. Like, they were like, what the fuck? Like, the drama, you know, the tea was spilled. It was crazy. She just casually was like, oh, yeah, no, he's a fucking liar. After, I don't know how many decades of him taking credit for the art. So yeah, that became huge. Like, the tea. I ask, hello. Wait, what is that even? Oh, a shock! Oh my god, it's like the little Pikachu. How cute. Okay. Yes. So that interview went live. Obviously journalists heard about it and were like, what the fuck? And a lot of people believed her, thankfully. In fact, Life magazine actually organized a paint-off. Paint-off, that's right. Between Margaret and Walter. They had this whole thing set up for them to like paint off. There were like reporters there. They had like live broadcasting and everything to prove that, in fact, that Margaret was a painter and not Walter. Though he could paint, it definitely wasn't nearly the same level of skill. In the streets, exactly. They were like, oh, we're gonna fight. We're gonna tussle, you know? Yeah, Fishy. We're nearing kind of the end-ish, but yes, we're getting through it. We're just now getting to where Margaret has told the truth and now is trying to prove that she, in fact, painted the waif children. Yeah, so the paint-off was all set up, ready to go, funded completely by Life magazine, but Walter didn't show up. Yeah, he didn't show up. They asked him later in an interview, what happened? You know, why didn't you show up? And he didn't attend because, quote, I simply do not take her seriously, end quote. So, yeah, that happened. That was pretty gross. I believe Margaret in 1984, after a little while, Margaret again challenged him to a paint-off. Again, he did not show up, so. Ouch, I know. What a fucking asshole, you know? She's magical for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that happened. So he was challenged to 2 paint-offs, and both of them he did not attend. So what can you do, I guess? Well, in 1986, yeah, 86, can you believe that? Margaret finally took Walter to court. The trial lasted 3.5 weeks. Thankfully, Margaret, you know, was able to bring a bunch of evidence to prove that, like, she was the artist. She had, again, sketches from when she was very young of maybe like a similar-ish art style. Walter, though, represented himself. Because I guess he was so confident in himself. Yeah, it was weird. He would go on these long ramblings of how awesome he was and how all of these celebrities he's met loved him and his art, and yeah, it was strange. It was very strange. It honestly, it sounded like Walter annoyed the judge. And that's bad. That's pretty bad to like get to that level of being so dramatic and going on such long pointless rambles that like the judge was getting kind of annoyed at him. But basically at the end of the day, it was kind of, and they kind of even say like, it's Walter's word versus Margaret's, because he had this long history of like him saying, yeah, I painted those, and, you know, well, Margaret didn't speak up, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So it was kind of like his word versus hers. So the judge said, okay, well, how do we prove this? Paint off, bitch, you know? So, yeah, finally, they were going to do the paint off to prove who was the true artist. He annoyed the judge. It was wild reading about it and stuff. But yeah, obviously I couldn't go through 3.5 weeks of like talking. So anyways, yes, they were going to do a paint off. I love it. Yeah, they right there in the court. The judge said, we'll give you an hour. We'll supply like the canvas, the easel, the paints and things. But you have an hour, basically, to do something, you know. Not with that attitude, yeah. You could go through all that talking. I'm listening. I don't have enough time, Grant. 2 days worth of research? No, I can't. Yeah. I wish I could. But yeah, just this alone. Oh, yeah, it took me so long. Anyways, yes. So, that's when they start the paint off. I don't think when the judge declared the paint off that they did it then and there. I think he like kind of gave them some time to prepare just in case. Because the paint off starts, yeah. And Margaret starts painting. It was noted that Margaret started with the eyes. Oh, there you go. That's her in the foreground here. This is the painting. She started with the eyes, went very good, very detailed, and went on to the rest of the painting. She was able to complete her painting in 53 minutes. Unfortunately, Walter did not paint anything. Yeah. Why? Well, he did have a reason. He gave the judge a doctor's note saying he had an old like shoulder injury and that his shoulder was really sore. Yeah, so he couldn't paint. Yeah. Yeah. Painter's curse. Well, my fingers are too gnarled. Just Sherryock fingers. Yeah, so, while, maybe he was telling the truth, the jury was not very impressed by the very polarizing evidence of her painting, which she did that painting in 53 minutes, and Walter gave nothing. So the Margaret won the case. Yeah, Walter owed Margaret $4 million for emotional distress, damaged reputation, and slander. Unfortunately, Margaret never saw any of that money because Walter had actually spent all their money. Yeah, he spent it on alcohol, partying. Yeah, she's like, I never got any of that $4 million. Like, so that kind of sucked. Oh no, unwrecked. Yeah. When they run it anyways. Yeah, I think he was really, confident that the doctor's note would excuse him. because at the end of the day, he couldn't prove it, but he could talk his way out of anything, sort of deal. So, but the doctor's note, by the super real doctor. Maybe it was a real doctor. I don't know. But anyways. So she won the case by a landslide. So legally, she took the name back of her paintings, of her art, the Waif Children. Unfortunately, Walter still claimed to be the true artist of the Waif Children. He kind of went into hiding for a while after that court case. He only reemerged in the 80s, late 80s, sorry, so like a couple of years later, to advertise his autobiography, his book, about the Waif Children, and how he was definitely the artist and he definitely painted all of those things. I think it was called like The Life of Keane. Coincidentally, don't know how this happened, after the court, aka after Margaret stopped supplying him with paintings, he unfortunately somehow was never able to produce another painting. And the reason for that, because he did give a reason, they did ask, why haven't you painted? He said, quote, "Painting requires full attention, full concentration, and I'm far too busy with my book," end quote. So that's why he never painted again, because he was just busy. He passed away in the year 2000 at 85 years old. Margaret continued to live the rest of her life very successful. She inspired many, many artists. In fact, the artist of the Powerpuff Girls is directly quoting her as his inspiration for the design of the Powerpuff Girls because of the big eyes. She has several museums. She has books. She has interviews. Tim Burton, again, did the movie Big Eyes on her life. And she passed away last year, actually. She passed away, but she passed away with true peace in her, knowing that she told the truth and she like won, you know? So, yeah. The end. The end. Life of Clown. You can steal that. I'm generous. Very believable, very true story. Yeah, I do. How I scammed my wife to paint. Yeah.
Humagorath1 has just subscribed. The end?
The end. Yeah, that's the end, Shuma. Thank you for the resub. Yeah, you missed the talk. I'm so sorry. Don't worry, the VOD will be saved. Man, this is a long art history. Look at that, an hour 20. Jesus. Very nomadic horror. Yeah, that was a Jesus. Hang on. 1, 2, 3. Three pages full of notes. I bought the ebook and everything on her autobiography, and I read it for this art history. Look at that. Yeah. 2 days, bitch. You know? So, well, less than 2 days, because, yeah, work and streaming, so. Been a great one, as usual. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so, I was saying about the Big Eyes movie, though, of course, they kind of dramatized some stuff, maybe had some of the events a little not out of order, but again, these I think personally they did a fantastic job with the movie Big Eyes, staying true to what happened. The artist herself, Margaret Keane, actually does make an appearance in the movie, which is fun. She actually watched the movie, Margaret Keane. She watched the movie, and she watched it, but I think she needed to like take a break during the movie because it was just a little too close to like what actually happened. So she said that she was like an emotional wreck watching it, but because it was like so good, you know, which should, you know, kind of hopefully entice you all to watch the movie because it was a very good one. So you wrote that? I wrote that. Oh my God. Got my doctor's note ready. It's the signature for the doctor is just neural signature, but in like bean juice on the paper. Hi Ori, I love you. It's actually my show. I have a doctor's note to prove it. Isn't that nuts though? This guy really believed. He truly believed that he was that they were his. Like the art pieces were all his. I just think that that's wild. That he not once did he ever say, "Oh, I lied. Oh no, that wasn't me. Yeah, that was her actually." Even till like he died believing that he was the artist. So